Hello Internet, welcome back to Trumps Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, speak into the digital abyss about books, movies, music that I find interesting, that I enjoy, or a combination of the two. Today I would like to tell you about a book I just finished reading, Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor. She is a Mexican writer. I believe she wrote one novel before this, but this was the first translated into English. And it is a kind of gothic, modernist, horror crime book. I'm going to be avoiding spoilers, but I'll give you some context and I'll talk a little bit about the themes and I'll talk about the style and why I like it. Now, the very beginning of the book is a single paragraph on a single page, a first chapter, which describes a group of children playing outside and finding the dead body of a woman called the witch lying in an irrigation canal. I'll just read you the last sentence of this page so you get a sense of the style and the vibe. The ringleader pointed to the edge of the cattle track, and all five of them, crawling along the dry grass, all five of them packed together in a single body, all five of them surrounded by blowflies, finally recognized what was peeping out from the yellow foam on the water's surface, the rotten face of a corpse floating among the rushes, and the plastic bags swept in from the road on the breeze, the dark mask seething under a myriad of black snakes, smiling. The writing in this book is very visceral, but it also does something that I really love when it's done well, which is it is third person, but it's always focalized through the person that it's talking about at any given time. So the perspective through the novel is constantly shifting. What you have is this witch who is a young girl at the beginning, or it tells you about her childhood. She was a young girl whose mother was the local witch, and her mother was feared and respected and kind of helped out the local women, gave them love potions, put hexes on people, was able to do some kind of rudimentary medicine. She had this particular place in the community, and the young witch never quite takes this place, but she has kind of a similar situation. She helps out the local sex workers. People do come to her for potions and such. She also pays the local men to have sex with her. She dresses all in black and in a veil anytime she's in public from the time her mother dies. Her mother basically disappears and nobody knows what became of her. Equally, nobody knows the witch's name. They didn't know her mother's name, and they don't know who the witch's father was. This chapter is kind of spoken almost as if from the perspective of the whole town. But then in the next chapter, you have this character, Yesenia, who's a young girl, or like a maybe in her late teens, who's kind of charged with looking after a whole load of cousins and siblings. She has a very dominant grandmother, and she knows that her cousin, Luismi, he has been having a relationship with the witch, or at least the witch has been paying him for sex. Later in the book, it seems to be more complicated than that. And she kind of wants to expose him. And she sees him involved with the witch around the time that the witch is killed. And this is the premise for the rest of the book. The story of the witch's murder is then told through these constantly shifting perspectives of the different characters. You've got Luismi's stepfather and his mother. You have his teenage girlfriend who's only about 13 years old. Her name is Norma. Her chapter includes the absolute best piece of writing I've ever read about child SA. And towards the end of the book, another character, Brando, who knows Luismi, who is this kind of super repressed gay guy whose internalized homophobia has made him into this very kind of angry, sadistic individual. He really reminded me of a character from Irvine Welsh. Like, he could have been in Marabou Stork Nightmares. But other parts of the book remind me a lot of Elfriede Jelinek, the way all of the characters kind of bigotry, prejudice, hateful speech is kind of woven into these monologues that kind of slip into different perspectives. Each chapter will do a trick where, like, you'll start with one character. So, for example, let's say Norma, she's in a hospital bed in one of the chapters, and some woman is talking to her. The woman that's talking to her, you'll get like the backstory of that woman. Then it'll return to Norma, and you'll remember that actually she was the kind of protagonist of this chapter. But then it'll go back to how she met the people of this village and Louise meet, and then it'll go back again to like her situation before that, where she was being abused by her stepfather, um, and it constantly kind of shifts around like this through these digressions, uh, to this extent that it's easy to forget that a narrative is being told, but slowly the story of the witch, her place in the community, how this community actually operates, kind of is revealed in like a sleight of hand, in the most subtle way, so that by the time you get to the end of the book, you've been told a story, but all of the details have been revealed gradually. And while you've been swept up in all of this virtuosic, visceral, at times grotesque and disturbing, at times beautiful writing. Other writers it kind of reminded me of were Jose Saramago, Saramago, I guess his name is. Um, Ina McBride, A Girl is a Half Formed Thing. And also Faulkner. It really reminded me of The Sound and the Fury, how you have these kind of different perspectives, and each one kind of uses the language of the person, and the story is pieced together through these perspectives. So you've got this kind of Southern Gothic aspect. What Melchor does more than any of these people is she really kind of exposes how a kind of compulsory masculinity and a compulsory heterosexuality uh, degrades a community and comes in the way of affection, relationships, health, um, destroys a community, and how the men and the women in different ways in a community like this are destroyed by the insistence on um, dissociation of affection, eroticism, love between men, and how women as well are like subjugated, abused, and then become part of this system of subjugation and abuse. This all makes it sound very serious, and in many ways it is. There's a lot of quite disturbing material in this book, but it's also consistently enjoyable because it's got this incredible pyrotechnic writing style. Much of it is extremely long sentences, to the point that at first I wondered whether it was only one long sentence, but then suddenly there'll be a sentence of one or two clauses just thrown in. So it's like you're like bound up in all of this like wave of language, and then you'll get like a very simple sentence, and then uh, yeah, it's never difficult to read. It's really compelling and enjoyable. Another thing I want to say is that it's really fascinating how it presents this culture that is tied up with like violence and drugs and the narcos and all of that, and at the same time has this layer of Catholicism, and then also in addition has this layer of like folk magic that's probably maybe from the Caribbean, or like from the African diaspora, and in the background there's also the kind of folk traditions of the natives of the land, and how all of these things are kind of woven together into quite superstitious and frightening tapestry of ideas that these people exist within. And the more they're exposed to like stress and trauma, the more they are inclined to like see a witch or the devil among them. I can't say a lot more about hurricane season without spoiling it, because this experience of things slowly being revealed is really important to the reading, and I wouldn't want to really tell you what's being revealed. But if you've read it, please do jump in the comments and chat with me about it. I would love to speak to you about your experience of the book. If you haven't read it and my description sounds vaguely interesting, I really don't think you'll be disappointed. So check it out and feel free to come back and hit me up when you have read it. Thanks very much for listening. I hope this was interesting and I hope to see you again.